uh, the guidance document for the purpose of helping and supporting the evaluation of principals. So with the new PCEL standard. So not only are they looking at how to make some changes and adaptations and modifications to what they're doing on a daily basis around evaluation, now principals are being evaluated on those newer standards as well. So just many challenges, but on the side of certification and ed prep, we do have some time that we're going to share some of the specifics this morning in early afternoon that we'll get into some of the details of what those adjustments are and some timelines just to help provide some clarification just on how you can communicate with your folks that are in the courses now and then seeking to take assessments as well. So other than that, Rob, I don't know that other than just things changing daily with the reopening piece is again just creating a lot of challenges.
The one thing I would just say, and I think it could probably go without saying, but principals as middle managers couldn't be stuck in the middle any more than they are right now between district decisions and trying to support staff and trying to make sure that instruction is happening right so that students are getting the right amount of work and that teachers are being taken care of as well. And how often should you bring the teachers and compel them to come into work for the public optics around that, or should you let them work from home? Again, I think there's so many questions and issues every day that principals are facing, and I don't know that there's a right answer on either side for any of these based on their own local context. And so if ever there was a lesson around situational ethics and decision making, this is probably it. Eve, does that what you're looking for?
That's right. Rob, a question, and Todd, you may want to. I know that our teacher preparation programs have been asking about ways to deal with clinical experiences and things like that. There are clinical experiences in the ed leadership programs too, and typically our programs ask for a principal to mentor them or someone like that. Do you have any advice or suggestions for our EPP, our principal prep programs or our advanced leadership programs on how to navigate that this fall with the principals? Yeah. And so you said they're in the middle right now, so we're going to add one more task to them. So any suggestions?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it is one we've dealt with a lot with our EPPs around clinical observations, and we've seen some different approaches by districts. Some districts have absolutely said that they will still have student teachers in because they know that it's kind of at their own peril if they don't help develop student teachers, as we've got to keep the pipeline flowing. However, we've had a lot more caution around allowing clinical observations in from our field observers, and rightfully so, especially if you're looking at caps on how many people can safely be in a room under the healthy at school guidance. You know, that's an extra spot that you might be denying a student if you've got observers in. So our EPPs are working on a variety of different ways of attacking this. Some are using some platforms like Atlas, which is the national board program where they have videos, and they're doing some, they're watching common videos, and then they're having look-fors, and they're kind of setting up that virtual observation experience. Instead of sending students to a board meeting, maybe recording one and them all watching it together and talking through it. I think there probably are some pretty decent opportunities for some targeted and intentional instruction around some of these experiences. Clearly, they're not going to get the in-person interaction in quite the variety of settings that the standards ask for, but I feel good that our EPPs are working with their districts to try to get some sort of experience around that. Now, as far as principals, I think it's going to be a case-by-case basis now. Under this time of virtual instruction. And maybe it's heresy to say this, but there should be a little extra room on some principals' plates from time to time, since they're not having to do a lot of supervision, discipline, game duty, those kinds of things. And so whether that means that gives them some time, a little extra time to do some online Zoom mentoring, or if there's a way that someone can come in and do some on-site observation, observing the healthy at work guidelines with distancing and masking, I would think that this would be a strong opportunity for a pre-service administrator to really get a look behind the scenes and be able to talk about some of the by-the-minute decisions that administrators are making. And any principal who asks me, I would really encourage them to be open to that, to continuing to mentor through this.
And Melissa Wainwright has shared that at OVEC, there's a way in which they are assisting and mentoring for some of the leadership courses. Melissa, you want to share what you and Chrissy are doing?
Sure. We just had a few candidates reach out to us for observation courses, and it's worked out that we've included them in planning time, where we're planning for professional learning that we're going to be doing with schools and districts and leadership opportunities for them. So in the kind of the back part of administration, we're thinking through the systems work, including them in those. And then we had a regional forum. We invited them to participate in that. And when we've had a district or a time where we've worked with a certain role group of leaders, letting them sit in on those sessions to just get to interact with leaders so they could have some form of what leaders are doing right now. And so I think it's very time appropriate for the situation in which we find ourselves. So that is an option that we're willing to do if it's a candidate that you feel like would benefit from that. We have access to a lot of leaders, and so
I think that's fantastic. And the language that we've been using with our EPPs is just try to make a good faith effort to provide the experience. We know that you're not going to be able to probably provide what you normally would under the best circumstances. So just do your best. The one thing that I would say that as staff who makes recommendations to the EPSB board is that we're happy to advocate for when it looks like the entity has gone as far as they can to try to meet the spirit of the regulation. I think where there would be some pushback is if there was an upfront request just for a blanket waiver saying, we just can't do anything, they can't do anything, can you just waive the hours? And I doubt that anyone on this call would do that. And I know the vast majority of you all are working creatively to try to provide the best learning experience possible, and we support that wholeheartedly.
And another area of discussion that I have heard in the teacher prep programs stems around the area of looking at data. And as you all are aware, the data situation in schools has changed. So for the faculty that teach courses that deal with data, we may certainly want to think about different ways to do that. So a lot of the COVID-19 implications are going to hit us in our work as we do projects and work with our participants and candidates this year. So just wanted us to be very flexible. If you have, we'll take an opportunity and a little bit later to share some ideas that people have or some concerns. But I just wanted to share this with you right now. And there is a COVID-19 KDE website. I'll send you the link after the meeting. So we will need to talk about that a little bit later. Sharon, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about the updates on our SLLA.
Okay, I'm Sharon Salzman, and I work at KDE, and I work with the assessment and the CEO and Sarah and cooperating teacher part A. And I think that's majority of what I do. But for the assessment for the principal certification, the SLLA 6011 is the older test, and it will no longer be offered starting November the 30th of 2020. The new one that has taken its place is the 6990. The 6011 is not offered at the at-home testing with ETS. It's only offered in test centers. The 6990, the new one, is offered at home in the at-home testing, and it was adopted back in June 15th of 2020. So that's the new one. The Kentucky specialty test, that has been taken out of statute and regulation, so it is no longer required to be certified as a principal. So they only have to take one principal test, and that's the 6990 or the 6011 until the end of November. Any questions on the principal test before I move into the CEO Plan 2?
Sharon, the only clarification that I have received in terms of questions has been that people who take the 6011 can substitute, or 6990 who take it now, can substitute that for the 6011 if they were in an already, in a program already. That our board has approved that they will use either one of those this year. After December 1, however, it is important for us to note that 6990 is the assessment that will be accepted by Kentucky. Is that the interpretation, Sharon?
Yes, if they have taken the 6011 before December 1 and then don't apply for certification until after December, we would still accept it. So if they've taken it before December 1, we will still accept the 6011.
Good. And another clarification on that, Sharon, because we have this rule or interpretation, you might say, in our educational leadership programs now, that if you get your principal certification and later on go for supervisor of instruction or DPP or superintendent, you only have to take this assessment once. So the 6011 would be acceptable in those other programs for that purpose if they took it prior to December 1. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. I just wanted to get some clarification on that.
Yes.
And it is only offered as a center test. It's not being offered as an at-home test. So some people are going ahead and taking 6990 now.
And all the study guides and all the practice tests that is on ETS's website is geared towards the 6990 test, not the 6011.
Correct. And the training that I was going to talk about a little bit later on August the 19th is going to be the practice training for the 6990 assessment. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that is all that's being offered right now for Kentucky. And Sharon, just for clarification, since 6990 is the one that is being offered, if people take the 6011, which is still okay through November 30th, do they have to do anything different with ETS? Because is it my understanding scores don't automatically come, or are they still automatically coming?
Well, if with this testing at home and testing through ProctorU, the tests are not automatically being reported to DE. You have to actually request that they be sent to us. It's not like it used to be when you went to a center, they would automatically come to your home state Department of Education. So they have to actually request that they be sent to EPSB KDE if they are doing the testing at home or through ProctorU.
Very good. That's good information to know. So for any of your candidates who are taking the at-home exams, they need to be aware that they have to make a request of ETS to actually send those scores to Kentucky KDE OLE. We just won't get those automatically.
Yes, and I contacted ETS and they have actually updated the Kentucky site to let participants know that they actually have to request it be sent to us. So they have actually updated the website for Kentucky.
Good, very good. Okay, the CEO 2 program, this is a program that is now allowable for people. I'm going to let Sharon explain it, but it can replace the master's program. It can provide for rank 2 and rank 1 if it's an approved program, and it does not have to be a university program. They can't give degrees or certifications, but they can give rank 1s and rank 2s. So Sharon, you want to talk a little bit about it and talk about the process and if we have any programs approved at this time.
Sure. So I'm sure people are aware that there was a CEO Plan 1, which has been in effect for several years, that allowed candidates to go through this program and receive a rank 1 or a rank 2. They can't do it for both, so they couldn't go through it for rank 1 and then go through it again for rank 2, or vice versa, rank 2 and then rank 1. But then they created a new one, which is a CEO Plan 2, and that is offered either a district, a group of districts, so like your educational cooperatives or university can submit a proposal to offer the CEO Plan 2, which would allow for a rank 1 or a rank 2. It is not a master's degree. It does not offer new certification. So it's just offering a rank 1 or a rank 2, depending on where a person is in their rank. We have had 6 either districts, cooperatives, or universities to submit. None of them have been approved at the moment. We do have one that's a cooperative that will be going before the board in October as of right now. They had some revisions that they had to do. They've submitted the revisions. The revisions have now passed, so they will be going to the board in October to be approved. We still have 5 other ones that are out there. We have one from a university that is brand spanking new, and it's gone out for the first review. We've got some other ones that have submitted that didn't meet the guidelines first go around, so they've been sent back for revisions, and I know some of them are working on that. This program is only recognized, it's just like the CEO Plan 1, if you're familiar with it, it's only recognized in Kentucky. It doesn't offer new certification or anything like that. It's just a rank 1 or rank 2 program.
And Sharon, it's also my understanding that if, say, a district or a co-op works with the university could work with them, and somehow through the decision making on it, they could offer a certification or a degree if the university, puts it as a part of the program and accepts it that way. Because only the universities make recommendations for certificates and degrees. Is that correct?
Yes, that would totally be up to the university. That doesn't have anything to do with the CEO Plan 2 program per se. Co-ops can work with universities, but through the CEO Plan 2 program, they're only going to get a rank change. But if the university wants to take the work they did with the CEO Plan 2 and further it for new certification or whatever, then that's totally up to the university.
Good. I don't see any questions. Does anyone have any questions at this time for Sharon regarding either the ETS assessments or the CEO programs? It's just an update for you to let you know what the status is on those programs.
And just for more information on the CEO Plan 2, all the information's out there on our website, the guidelines, the regulation, and all of that, if anybody is interested. And if anybody is interested in being a reviewer for these CEO Plan 2 programs, please send me an email and let me know you're interested, or if you know someone in the district or who would be a great reviewer, please let me know.
Thank you. They do have a rubric that they use to evaluate those programs, and it's a pretty extensive rubric and addresses a lot of the questions that programs at universities offer. So, but these rank 1 and rank 2 programs are, as I also understand it, Sharon, if they receive a rank 2 or rank 1 in these programs, they can cross districts and co-ops and things like that. They don't have to just stay within the co-op that approves it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Keith is asking, would it be a benefit of a co-op doing this if it doesn't get a certification? You know, it's, Sharon, do you see, I don't see that the co-ops see the certification as the issue, mostly because people go on for the advanced degrees for pay changes. Have you heard any different than that?
I haven't heard any different.
Okay.
Can I
Okay.
jump in just real quick?
Sure.
Sure.
This, and Sharon's doing a good job. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
I think that it's important to try to divorce CEO from a master's. And that's one of the issues that we've come up against, is that people are viewing it as a master's equivalent, and it's not. It's if you think more along the lines of like a national board in terms of a competency-based, deep professional learning program, then I think that that's probably a better look or better approach for it. However, there are some programs that are being provided or being proposed that are piggybacking the opportunity to have university hours transfer, maybe up to 15 hours, if they do it in consolidation or in cooperation with another entity. So some universities with the rank 2/master's requirement having been removed from regulation are trying to utilize this as a bit of a of kind of a pipeline for their programs to help establish a relationship with the teachers out there and hopefully set them up for wanting to continue their education. And some are offering tuition reductions if they finish out the plan. I will say that the one that we've had submitted from university, I was pleased to see, and they'll probably get over the hump more quickly than other entities because they're used to writing for a standard that's much higher than just a professional learning program. And once they are able to get those teachers in contact with the professors who will be leading this or the instructors who are leading this, I think that's going to really create probably a pretty strong relationship to recruit folks into their programs.
It's an excellent point, Rod, to make the distinction between masters and what the CEO plan really is purported to do. I just posted in the chat, people are very interested in this. So I am suggesting they want to know kind of like, tell us a little bit more about the forms and things. So Sharon, if it's okay with you, next time on our next meeting, we will make that one of the topics so that we can do a little sharing about what do some of these programs look like, and what are some things that maybe universities can do to start working with folks who offer these. So I do think that that's something that is interesting. I know I've had several questions about the CEO program. So Sharon, we'll just put it on the next agenda and you can kind of share some of the ideas that people are coming forth with on those CEO plans. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If an individual gets the CEO for a rank 2, has there been changes made in regulation as to what constitutes a rank 1? Typically it's 60 hours including your master's. So how would one advance to a rank 1 if there is no credit hours associated with the CEO plan 2?
Well, one way you could do it is if you got a CEO plan 2 for your rank 2, and then you got national board, you could move on to a rank 1 program for that. That though is not 30. It's not an equivalent to 30 hours of college work. So if you're doing the college work, you're also probably going to get a certification or a license or something with it. With this, all you're doing is getting the ability to have a raise and be paid on that rank, which is not portable outside of the state, and is only for that, and gives you no other permissions, endorsements, or certifications.
And Sharon, help me out. As I understand the plan, there is a question on there that they have to address about what are, what is the requirement in terms of not necessarily hour for hour, but how are you making provision for rank 2 and rank 1 differently so that there is a distinction between the two? Is that not correct?
They have to have a justification for whichever rank they're providing.
Right. So they do have to, Michael, give a description of why this would be, a rank 2 or why it would be a rank 1. And there's some criteria associated with that. So as we, I think as Sharon shares with us next time, maybe sharing the rubric with you all would really help, because there are some pretty significant look fors as you're looking at the programs. So, but it's not the same, it's not credit hours like it is a college. So.
Also, Eve, let me clarify for my, this is Allison, by the way. The rank 1 regulation also allows for someone who comes into an approved program, and if they complete a planned program and they're already at rank 2, then and CEO plan 2 would be considered, an approved program that can result in the rank 1. Okay.
Right. Several of our universities used to have those planned programs for rank 1, which wasn't a degree and it wasn't a certification. It was just a planned program. So we will definitely spend some time on that next time, because I do think you're very interested, and I do think it's something we all need to be very aware of, and especially since universities can offer an option on the CEO too as well. So I'm going to move on. Crystal, I've asked Crystal Horde and Todd to update us on certifications. I know Rob referenced it, but Crystal, there's always questions around what people are asking with certifications and can I do this and can I do that? So can you kind of give us an update and a guidance on issues that are arising and what's allowed or not allowed this year?
Sure. As Rob mentioned at the beginning of his opening statement, there's been some allowances that some action items that the board approved to allow for some testing, basically some testing waivers for the 2021 school year for the teachers. Now, this will also apply for principal candidates who are who maybe just completed their principal program this summer or in May, or possibly maybe scheduled to complete their programs in December, who have not yet been able to take their assessment. It is important to know, because I have gotten a couple questions, whether or not the 1 year testing waiver is a year or a school year, and it is limited to the school year. So there's been no action by our board going forward beyond June 30th of 2021. So anyone who has not been able to take their certification assessment, in this case, if we're referring to the 6990 or the 6011, we have been issuing for new principals who have recently graduated, we've been issuing a 1 year statement of eligibility rather than a 5 year statement of eligibility. And upon an offer of employment, they go through the normal process of submitting, the district submits their confirmation of employment form, and then we look at that time to see if they have by chance taken their assessment. Maybe they've taken the 6990 through the at-home testing possibly, and And if they have not, then they would receive the professional certificate for 1 year, and the renewal requirement on that states that they must have their testing completed by next summer, by June 30, 2021. But there is a kind of a grace period allowed in the regulation that does allow individuals to have up until September 1st of the expiration year to meet their renewal requirements. That's probably the biggest thing that will affect the principal certifications going forward, is that testing piece. We have been actively issuing a lot of those 1 year statements of eligibility. We've even had some people who have contacted us about renewing a statement of eligibility that maybe has expired. And if they've already completed a principal program in the past and previously have been recommended for principal certification or the principal statement, we can go ahead and issue them a 1 year statement of eligibility because we already have verification that they've completed the program, and issuing that 1 year statement on the same premise that they get it for 1 year, but they have to take the assessment within that 1 year period. Otherwise it cannot be renewed. Todd, do you have anything you want to add on that? I think you're on here. Am I missing anything that we talked about?
No, I think you've covered it.
Okay.
Unless they have specific questions.
Right.
I have a question. This is Janet Applin from WKU.
Sure.
Where you mentioned if they had already completed a principal program, had a statement of eligibility, been recommended but never followed through on that. Is there a time limit? Because we've been dealing with this situation at WKU where people may have completed a program as far back as 7 or 8 years ago, but never got certification for whatever reason, and now want to get their certification. So the main question is there a timeline on how far you will go back for somebody who had a statement of eligibility?
If the person has already been recommended by the university and has previously been issued the statement of eligibility by our office, we don't have a time limit on that. They can renew a statement of eligibility either they can do the one-time option of 6 graduate hours in the area of ed leadership, supervision, or administration if they've never used that option previously. If they have used that option already, then the only option to renew, and both of these options, this is in statute, so we have to offer these 2 options. But if they've already used the graduate hour option, their other option is the retesting. But again, that is if they've already been recommended for the principal statement in the past. If it's somebody, we run in, Allison knows this because I always go to her with these questions. If we have somebody who completed a program but has never been recommended for the certification. If they completed the program but never went through your certification office to submit the CA1 form and be recommended for the certification, and a lot of time has lapsed, then it may become a recency issue with the university if your programs have changed significantly, if there's additional requirements that they need to complete in order to be recommended. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much. That's
Sure.
exactly the issue we've been struggling with because
Right.
our program has changed significantly.
Right. And that may be an option, or that may be a time or a situation where that candidate might be a good candidate for an option 6 principal program or proficiency evaluation principal program if your institution offers one of those 2 options, because they've already got a lot of the groundwork laid. They just need maybe a couple additional courses that have been updated to the program. But many times they're coming to you and they're asking us, and then we're sending them to you all because
Right.
they've got a job offer waiting and they need that
Exactly.
immediately.
Exactly. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Crystal and Todd, the other question that's coming in centers around the 4 programs that now have the SLLA requirement. And the date in the regulation is December 1, 2020 as an effective date. Now, some of our universities are finishing at Thanksgiving this year, so they'll be completing their programs ahead of that date. But the question is, what if they're in the completion of the current program and it doesn't happen until December? Do they have to take the SLLA since they're still finishing out their old program? But they will be finished this semester, the fall semester.
So
It's that date issue that's happening
Yeah.
because it says that the December 1 is the SLLA requirement start, and some of the programs will finish in December. Now, some of them have moved up their schedules to where they're finished by Thanksgiving now, but not
So
everyone has.
Okay, so I'm gonna tag team the Allison on this question, since this is also a program completion ed prep question. My thought is, and Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, if the program completion date is prior to the date that the testing requirement goes into effect, my thought is they have to, it would go off of the program completion date, not the date that that the application is submitted or that we're processing the application. Allison, am I correct on that?
Correct, but not all EPPs have the testing, passing the test as an exit requirement, all right? Because the test is a certification requirement, and it's the EPP's decision on whether or not they choose to make that an exit requirement. So it's possible that if it's an exit requirement, that they could go on and take the test prior to the EPP reporting them as exited, which means they could take the 6011 test anytime between now and November the 30th. Because the coursework that they had taken would have been aligned to ISLIC and prepared them hopefully for that 6011 test.
So I guess clarification on that, Allison. If this is a candidate for DPP and they are going to be finishing in December when the university closes the semester, and they finish their program that they're currently in, and the requirement for the assessment wasn't in their program, do they have to take it then after December 1?
According to the regulation, it's my understanding that they do, in order to qualify for the certificate after December 1st.
And at least from a certification standpoint, we look at the recommendation of program completion date on the page 5 of the CA1 form, as well as the admission exit data in the admission exit screen. We look at the program completion date in there. So if we see, at least the way that my staff would process this is, if we see that the program completion date and admission exit is prior to December 1st, and we see that the recommendation program completion date is prior to December 1st, I would consult with Allison if needed, but we would not be looking for that test if the program completion date is prior to that. And I guess that would then, because we don't know in certification which universities require the test as an exit criteria or not. So we would be trusting that recommendation would be the date that all of your program requirements are completed.
Okay. For those of you working that have not submitted your regulation alignment to us yet, your teach out plan has to address this. How is it that people who are in programs like DPP, DOSE, supervisor of instruction, where this has never been a requirement, how are you working with those folks now to complete it before December 1st, or to get them ready to take the exam if they're not going to complete their program with you before December 1st? So I just wanted us to have a little discussion about that, because there have been several questions about it. And I know most of you deal with the principal preparation programs, but our expectation of this group is that you're communicating with the other ed leadership programs so that they're getting this information. And that confusion about that one issue of when is it expected for these other folks to have to start taking that exam? It's December 1 unless they've completed your program. So that is something that people, I'm not quite sure, have understood as clearly as they need to. So Crystal, thank you for that explanation, because
Sure.
I do think people needed to be aware of that. Any additional certification issues that Crystal or Todd that you've come up against or you can think about?
Not right offhand, not unless somebody else has specific questions.
Okay.
Lots of certification issues, but for once, the principal part of it is actually pretty straightforward. That's our easy stuff that we're dealing with right now. It's everything else that's the hard stuff.
Yes, good. That's well, and I think we've had such good communication with this group that they've been working on it. So we do want to, I think the teacher issues are probably greater than some of our administrator issues right now, but that doesn't mean that we may not have some coming up. So just wanted to take this chance to talk about those. Since we have talked about certification, Allison, I'm going to move straight on to you and let you talk about what the things for the advanced leadership program.
Okay. So I think when I spoke earlier, I didn't introduce myself, and there are some new folks in this group that I've not had the opportunity to meet yet. So my name is Allison Bell, and I'm the branch manager in the educator preparation branch, which is part of the division where certification and prep are housed within the Office of Educator Licensure and Effectiveness. My primary responsibilities in terms of ed prep is to coordinate the assessments that Sharon does a magnificent job managing, the CEO and accreditation of educator preparation providers, as well as the program approval reviews and approval processes. So this morning, I'm going to talk to you all about the program things that you all need to be planning for submitting in order to demonstrate that your program's alignment with 16 KAR 3090. Last summer, I believe Eve sent all the EPPs that have EdAdmin programs a Word document that outlined 2 options for being able to submit the program information to demonstrate the revision and alignment with the new regulation requirements. Those 2 options continue to exist, and as an EPP, you can choose which one you want to use. You can submit the information via Word documents, but please note that if you choose to use the Word documents, the templates, the spreadsheets that Eve provided to you, these need to be separate submissions for each of the different certification areas. And the reason why that's important is we have different content reviewers who need to be able to focus in on the reviews for that particular certification area. So it's important for the documentation to clearly delineate the requirements for each of the different certification areas. The other option is that you can submit the information into the Kentucky Education Program Review System that we call KEEPers. And there are some specific modules that you would use in order to be able to submit that information using that electronic platform. There are some videos that are available on the EPSB website within the Division of Educator Preparation, Assessment and Internship, but the website hasn't been updated to show the new division's name, but the videos are there that you can access, and they're kind of little tutorials. The other option is if you would like a one-on-one or, you know, an in-person session, you know, a virtual in-person session, please reach out to me and I would be glad to schedule kind of a tutorial session with you and walk through with the help of Rich Miller, who's the project manager for Keepers. And we would be glad to help you in learning how to navigate that system. The timeline for the submission of the documentation, whether it be Keepers or in the forms, is December of 2020. So December 1 of 2020. Some of the institutions have already submitted several of their programs. Others have not quite yet submitted anything. We have been given a timeline for each of the institutions of their estimated submission date. You might want to, if you have not met that tentative timeline, please contact Eve and let her know what your estimated schedule is for submitting that information. That's a critical piece of information that we need in order for us to be able to plan ahead, identify content reviewers for programs that we know are coming in. So that helps us to be able to be organized in order to get your reviews completed as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Allison, for suggesting that. And I'll send that out to the programs that have not submitted yet, because I am aware, because people said to me that they're running late, but it would be good for you to maybe send us a new timeline, because we do have, it's getting close to December really for us to get these done. So thanks, Allison, for bringing that reminder out.
For EPPs that want to be able to offer your principal program, a principal certificate at the rank 2 master's level, if you do not currently have identified program codes, please email me at allison.bell@education.ky.gov so that I can create these program codes for you. Now, these codes are critical because that's how you link program information within Keepers, and once the programs complete the review process and become approved, then those codes are critical for the folks who do your admission exit reporting, because that's how they link a person and admit a person and exit a person from a program in order to be able to recommend them for a certification. So if you are unsure or don't understand exactly what these program codes are, please reach out to me. I would be glad to set up a meeting with you and talk through and share with you what your current codes are and then discuss what are some options that you're thinking about that we might need to include in order for the information to be submitted and approved. There have been some questions about the career and technical education principle and whether or not they have to be submitted. Okay? And yes, they do, because the career and tech ed principal programs have to be aligned with the PESEL standards, and candidates in those programs seeking that certification also have to take the SLLA test and passed it if they haven't earned a previous EdAdmin certificate prior to December 1 of 2020. When you're thinking about submitting the information, okay, some things that you'll want to make sure that you're addressing. All right, identifying the courses, demonstrating alignment with the PESEL standards to those courses, and then providing evidence within the syllabi of that alignment and any clinical experiences that would be associated with a particular course. There is no hour requirement like there is for initial teacher preparation programs, but there should be some opportunities demonstrated within the programs where candidates are having the opportunity to practice what they're learning. The assessments have to be submitted and demonstrate alignment with the PESEL standards. And those assessments have to demonstrate the ability for the program to collect and analyze data in 5 different assessment areas. Those 5 assessment areas are candidate knowledge, skills, and dispositions, professional capabilities, data-driven decision-making and research-based practices, integration of technology, and clinical practice. Now, that doesn't mean that it's 5 different assessments. It's just that whatever assessments you're using to evaluate the effectiveness of your program has to demonstrate those 5 areas. It's also critically important for programs to demonstrate how their clinical experiences are related to the certification. So if it's a director of pupil personnel program, for example, it should be clear that the clinical experiences are going to be targeted and appropriate for somebody who's training for that certificate. A lot of the preparation programs we've seen thus far kind of have this basic EdAdmin core of courses that they all take, and there's not been any clear evidence that we've seen thus far for several of our programs that don't do a very good job in explaining how the clinical experiences are tailored for someone who is trying to become a DPP or a director of special ed or a principal or a superintendent. Okay, so you just want to keep that in mind. The last thing I want to talk about is the teach out plans or the transition plans. As Eve mentioned earlier, because of the timing that's in the regulation of the transition from the old programs that were aligned with ISLIC and TSSA to the new requirements of aligning with PESEL, for students who are basically caught in the transition between the old and the new standards. We need to see how the EPP is addressing that. You know, are there specific deadlines put in place for people to finish? Have there been, you know, efforts to communicate with people who have maybe not been as active in the programs, that dropped out for a while and come back? And, you know, just kind of what are your ideas for helping the people transition from the old to the new? Does anybody have any questions?
Allison, you did a great job explaining, I think, those pieces. And all I can encourage each EPP who has not completed their regulation alignment submissions yet, to let us know if you have questions. We welcome those. We've been working with different universities on those. And some of the things that Allison just shared with you in clarifying what's meant by this have been those issues that we have encountered as we've been reviewing the program. So thank you very much with that.
Eve, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so as Allison said, we can submit through the forms or through Keepers to have our programs approved. But after approval, everything has to be entered through Keepers regardless.
Ultimately, we think we want to transition so that all the programs are in the system.
And what's that deadline?
It varies depending upon the institutions. We work with each institution individually and develop a timeline that works for that particular institution.
So Stephanie, one of the issues is you certainly can use the forms, but just be aware that at some point, the same information is going to be needed to be added to the Keeper system. So we've been allowing for both because for some, it's been more efficient for them to go ahead and do the forms, and we've been doing that. For others, putting it in Keepers, and then that way it's already there, has been the route that they've taken. So it's up to each individual university as to how they submit.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. Okay, Jenny, we're going to go on to you and let you talk a little bit about where we are with P3 and some of the initiatives that are going on.
Okay, sure. I'm glad to provide updates. And also, when you receive this PowerPoint, you'll have active links that you can get to any of the information that I talk about today. So one of the things we've had going on is in terms of virtual initiatives has been office hours. And so most recently on August 6th, last Thursday, we partnered with the Office of Educational Leadership with Ben Maynard and also the Office of Continuous Improvement, David Cook. And they talked about digital learning as well as non-traditional instruction, NTI. So we had over 40 school leaders who joined us for that hour of time for these office hours. Around this, we broke out into breakout spaces using Google Meet, and for both David and Ben Maynard, and then some chose to stay with P3 and talk about some different things for digital leadership. So that's really going well. We're finding a lot of interest in that for sure. Our next office hours is on August 20th. If you would like to join us, you can, again, these are all active links. You can go there and you can be provided with the Google Meet link once they're on that page to join us for those hours next Thursday from 10 to 11. Additionally, in partnership with OET, the Office of Educational Leadership, and Ben Maynard, we're offering digital leadership with Eric Scheninger. And so far this morning, a couple of hours ago, I haven't checked it in a couple of hours, but we had 180 respond to the interest survey so far. 105 of those were principals, 48 were assistant principals, 14 district leaders, and then 13 were others. We had some IT coaches, some co-op personnel, curriculum coaches, etc. Just it varied from there. So we have a lot of interest in this digital leadership aspect. We are continuing to follow up with our coach approach folks, our project that we have with that, and working with Eve's group with the university leaders, and then also those principals who were in the coach approach and cognitive coaching, and they would like some additional, they've let us know what they would like to have happen for them, some additional supports for them next week. We really want to build this support network so that these experienced principals then can coach and become mentors as well for new principals next year, because they do reside in all different parts of the state. So we're excited about continuing to grow that group. As far as the P-Style Professional Learning Series, so modules 5 and 6 are now complete. Pretty excited about that. We also have a CATSA recording available talking about the 6 modules, and within that we also have well, Kevin Stoll, superintendent at Garrett County Schools now, and he, at the end of that, talks about how he's using the professional learning series at Garrett County and how he's using those modules and doing that. So that recording is available here. The update in evaluation training and the initial certified evaluation training. So for update evaluation, we still have some questions about that, whether or not KDE is offering that face-to-face. We are not, because we're offering those modules. So districts can use the modules in however way they want, or they don't have to at all. They can design their own update training in any way that they choose, as well as cooperatives or other entities could also offer update training, just not the initial. So the initial evaluation training, we did have to back up and punt a little bit with that. We had originally planned to have those face-to-face in September. 8 different trainings all over the state using our regional cooperatives. So now they're all virtual, and we're going to be using Google Meet for those. So we're revamping it so that it is, so that it's effective using that virtual platform. So we're also intending to model and intentionally model using a virtual platform for professional learning and just for learning in general. I will take you to the site if it will let me. Sometimes it's a little slow. So just to make sure, just navigating this professional learning series site and navigating, this is a one-stop shop for us so that you can see the initial certified evaluation training dates, the update evaluation training. 2 of those initial certified evaluation training dates, the first 2, September 1st and 2nd, and I believe 8th and 9th, are already closed. They're full to capacity. So we're having to close those at 40 because we figure that even 40 participants virtually is quite a lot to handle to really showcase that engagement for learning. So here at the Professional Learning Series, once again, there's a new video here that shows how to navigate the tool itself, the Guidance for Growth and Evaluation tool. And then if you scroll on down, you're used to seeing modules 1, 2, and 3. Remember that modules 4, 5, and 6 are designed for synchronous collaborative learning, whereas modules 1, 2, and 3 could be asynchronous learning, just individuals sitting in front of a computer. And then with our modules, you can also access, for example, the different things that are discussed within the module. For example, we use a coaching protocol, this 6-step feedback guide for coaching. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what that is. But we talk about this in module 6, and then provided it might be something that you might be interested in. It is just a sample coaching protocol, but it does use those question stems, much like what we learned about in cognitive coaching. Many of them are from cognitive coaching, but now these are around principal and coaching a principal. So let me go back here. So the update evaluation training, the initial evaluation training, obviously you're invited to attend those. You can register for those yourself if you wanted to be a part of that 2-day training and listen in on that training for new folks. You're certainly available to do that. Like I said, we do have 6 more that are open, and the dates and all are available here. Again, we're using Google Meet and also Google Classroom. We're learning that platform so that we can model using Google Classroom as well. What questions do you have about what's going on in P3 and how you might connect with us and with these school leaders?
Jenny, I'm thinking that along with some discussion next time about the CEO programs, that maybe we put P3 as our second discussion point and just focus on those 2 areas about how can we, what's going on in P3 and how can we dovetail with it? How can we use that to enrich what we do in candidate preparation and things like that? So maybe we can just put that on discussion, because some of those virtual initiatives I think are very important. I do think that since our candidate preparation programs, since we are supposed to have them ready for technology, I think some of these, sitting in on these initiatives, these discussions that you are offering are really good. The offering on the digital leadership, we will send that out so that everybody can sign up for that, because I think digital leadership is something that everyone's going to be focusing on. So I think that's just something that we need to have some more discussion on, and we'll put those topics on. We will definitely, a couple of questions in chat, the co-ops, we will definitely get the people who are trained in coaching out so that you can give support to participants that you have, because we do have folks that are trained. And Keith, you have a question about when we're in our HR classes, what would be essential that we cover in order to get them ready for this? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Are you talking about the evaluation training, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I was just thinking, what pre-service principals, if there's any high points that we need to cover, we're familiarizing them with the PECL standards and the new evaluation tool, of course, but is there anything that anybody can think of that's just really critical for them to know, or do we really almost need to have them lightly trained so they're better prepared when they get the initial certification training?
So digital platforms, that's something that they obviously during this time, but even before now, just being aware of the digital platforms for use, and so that they can support teachers in those digital platforms.
Okay.
Another thing is the Kentucky framework for teaching and the framework for other professionals. So even though they've been in those roles, sometimes what we're noticing in the initial certified evaluation training is that they don't have a deep understanding of the components within those 2. And that's the required criteria for all teachers and other professionals in the state of Kentucky. So that's a constant, but they are maybe have some questions about really knowing how to support teachers around that.
And Keith, we did send out the new principal survey that we typically send out each year. I'm going to share those results with you all, not on this meeting because we had a full agenda, but I will put it on the agenda quickly, because one of the areas that the new principals said that they desired more assistance with is that whole human resources feedback to teachers area. So that is what this coaching is getting at, what this training is getting at. So that's where we're trying to do CAP follow-up, so we can do some more support with principals on how do you do that. But that initial training, one of the key issues is not all principals understand the Kentucky framework for teaching. and how to even use it to give teachers feedback. So that is something we probably need to put out there for us to have some discussions about. So you all, that's why these topics come up, is we want to know what we need some more discussion about. So next time, when Jenny, when we have P3, maybe those are some issues we need to talk a little bit more about.
Sure, glad to. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions right now? But Jenny and the P3 folks are going to stay with us this year. We're dovetailing because there's so much. If we're preparing the candidates, we definitely need to know what the needs are when they're supporting candidates. So they will be with us, and we will be offering, we're offering them to join us, and then they're offering us to join them. So we will be sending out lots of opportunities for you to participate. If you can't participate, I think it might be good if each university maybe had someone that participated in the different activities, because it's just a matter of keeping up. So we will continue to work on these. And the other thing that the professional learning series, folks, I can't tell you, those 6 modules, if you use those with your candidates, if you give them an opportunity to understand the professional standards for educational leaders, those are going to be very, very supportive, not only for the people out in the field who are going to be evaluated on the PEASL standards this year, but it also, I think, provides a lot of information for us in working with our candidates. And I would encourage everyone, and maybe Jenny will have time at our next session, to look at Module 6, because it actually talks about how you can coach a candidate or a principal into looking at their own growth. And I know a lot of people are wanting to do that. So that's something that we've been working on, we've been collaborating on, and so that's something that we will get to as well. I'm going to move on because we're no longer going to be using Zoom. But I'm going to just quickly say that we do have ETS coming in for working with us on a practice training on August the 19th from 10 to 12. You can invite anyone from the Advanced Educational Leader programs, other programs, because they're going to have to know this assessment as they're working with their candidates and as they're teaching the courses and giving the clinical experiences and things, so that candidates come out doing well on this assessment. We are inviting people. I just need to know who's going to be participating, because I will be sending you a practice code where you will have an individual test that you will be looking at during this session. So just let me know if you're going to be participating. Just an email is all that it takes. So, but I'm going to move on quickly right now, because we're going to start using Teams as our meeting system from now on instead of Zoom. And Beth Gravitt from from the Instructional Technology Department is going to talk about Teams. So Beth, we're going to turn this over to you, and if you have something different to share, or I think you should be able to show your laptop if you need to, your screen. So go for it. It's up to you now.
Excellent, Eve. Thank you very much. Thank you all for having me. I am going to share with you, instead of a PowerPoint, I'm going to share my whole desktop with you. I'm going to break the rules of presenting and share everything, because I want to be able to kind of show you what Teams looks like, not only from inside a meeting, but the experience of getting an invitation and going through that. So we're going to have to jump through a few programs, and I'll try to do it at a full screen here instead of on PowerPoint. So let me share with you my screen, and you all will get a chance here. So with a Teams meeting, what you're going to get is an invitation, much like this right here that you got today for Zoom. You'll get an invitation that looks like this. Your link will be a little cleaner than this one. They normally just say join Teams meeting. This one's a little more scrambled because of how it was created. And you'll click on that link. And if you do that from within Outlook, like I just showed you, or from within a Gmail account or something like that, you will most likely be sent to a browser screen that looks much like this. From this screen, we normally recommend, if you have the Teams app installed, please select Open in Microsoft Teams. If you do not have the Teams app installed, you can download it from here. Now, I realize some of our districts have set up to where not everyone can download, so you may have to reach out to a district tech if you're in a district and don't have it. A lot of you may already have the app installed, so you would do that. You can choose to continue to a browser. Just like in Zoom, you know, you're asked when you join the meeting, it pops up the browser and it says, hey, do you want to open Zoom if you've got the app installed? So this is much the same experience. And then again, you have a second opportunity to open in the Teams app. I'm going to cancel that because I'm now going to take you over to my Teams calendar. You can see this is a little bit different looking calendar, but still a calendar and the same information. I'm going to click on that same Teams meeting from earlier that I showed you. Again, it still looks a little junky here, but I have a join button. So if you already have the Teams app, you can come to your Teams calendar and join meetings from here. Now, when you join a Teams meeting and you click that button, and I'm going to do it a little different because I don't want to get disconnected from you all. I'm going to click Meet Now. And it will come up and it will look like this when you're joining in a Teams app. I'll show you what it will look like if you join in a browser here in a moment. But you'll come up and the first thing you get is just a screen that will give you an opportunity to make some decisions, just like you do with the Zoom you're using now. You'll have the opportunity to decide whether you want your video on or off, your audio on or off. If you choose to have your video on, again, much like Zoom, you can choose, and this is grayed out right now because I do not have the video on. I can slide that on, and you'll see that it pops up. I can choose to go ahead and blur my background. I can select a pre-built background that's been made by Microsoft, or I can add my own background. I've seen a lot of the schools out there getting really creative, and they're awesome. They're doing backgrounds with their logos or with their kids, and we at KDE are kind of doing the same. So you may already have one of those. And then the last thing, again, like Zoom, you can go ahead and confirm your audio. Then you can join. The things down here at the bottom are just simply to join with your audio off. If you have a situation where you don't have a microphone, you do have the ability to join the meeting here where you can see everything in the app, but listen on a cell phone if you don't have the speakers or the mic, and those things happen. And then add a room is not like Zoom when we talk about breakout rooms. That's adding an actual conference room. Teams is made to be conference room aware, and so that you have conference rooms that are Teams aware. I often liken this, if you've been to the Sauer building at any point, and I'm sure in schools you have the same type situation. We have a very large training room on our first floor. And I'm sure that when we all get back to the new normal, one of the first things we'll do is make that room what we call Teams aware. So I could invite that entire room, and we could have 20, 50, 100, 200 people in that room. And it really affects just how the audio and stuff is handled when you're in a large environment. So that's what that means. So I'm going to go ahead and click now, join now. I've tested this and I didn't lose you. I didn't lose the other one. So hopefully I will not lose you all now. So this is, we're now in the meeting. We're actually in the Teams meeting. Now, it will open up. There's two possible experiences you will have, and it will depend on how old of a version of the Teams app you have. So if yours has been there for a while and you've not used it, so it's probably not been updated, it's possible that when you join, it will look very much like this. And when you wiggle your mouse, this toolbar right here will actually appear right here. That's really the big difference. They've moved it from being right in the middle of your screen, because as you can imagine, if someone were presenting a PowerPoint, it's in the way. And they've pinned it to the top up here. So please note that yours may look a hair different, but it all works the same. So I have a lot of options here on this toolbar. I have the option to show participants. So when you're in your meetings, you can click here and you can come in and you can see everybody that's in there by name. You can chat. Again, just like Zoom, you can come in, you can, you know, type in your message, hit enter, everybody's going to see it. You all can have a conversation there, ask your questions there. You can hover over one, very social media like. You can, you know, you can give it a thumbs up, you can laugh at it, you can make a very angry face. That's a new one. I'm not sure what that's all about. And if it is yours, if it is your message, you can actually come in here and edit or delete it. If it is not your message, and maybe you have a Spanish speaker in and they want to translate it, they can come in and translate it. And our chats also have an immersive reader built in, so it is possible to use that as well. Teams also, for those of you who may be reaching out or maybe using these devices, it also has a direct connectivity with JAWS and NVDA. So that's that. Another thing that you can do is you can raise your hand. It seems like a very simple process, but you can throw your hand up, and the way that looks is it will pop up in the participant list. And unfortunately, I'm here all alone, so you don't really see it. But if I were here with others and I raised my hand or they raised their hand, it would also put my little hand right here. It would look like that. There's a little hand right there, and it lets everybody know that I've got my hand up. Of course, we tease with everybody. Once your question's answered, you need to put your hand back down. But that's how that works. There's a whole lot of stuff in this ellipsis, so I'm going to skip over it real quick and I'll come back to it. Of course, this is your video camera again. Mine is turned off. I'm actually sparing you all. I had some surgery on my forehead and I have a very ugly gash with stitches, and you all don't want to see that, but I could turn that on there to where you'll be able to see me. There's where I could mute that meeting. And depending on the permissions you have, just like Zoom, this is where you would share content. And I can click there and it comes up and it looks pretty much like Zoom. I'm able to share my desktop. I'm able to share just a window. I'm able to share a PowerPoint. I'm able to share a whiteboard that can be put in presenter mode or shared with everybody in the group. We could all do it at the same time. And I can include my computer sound if I were to want to do a video or audio. So very similar to what you've done when you've shared a screen in Zoom. Of course, the big button is you leave, and that's how you get out. So I'm going to go back to the ellipses here because as attendees, there's probably some stuff here you're going to be very interested in. And I will say that depending on how your district or your environment has set up the administrative end, you may not see everything I have here. And I'm gonna point those out and tell you, you know, how those can get turned on, and your administrative, your technical folks, I'm sorry, there at your district can do that for you. Everybody will have device settings. Again, that's back to just picking my speakers and my camera and that type stuff. Meeting notes is actually the creation of a OneNote notebook where you can go in and take notes. Most people don't do that anymore because we record our meetings and our recordings have transcripts, and so we don't do a lot of notes, but you certainly can. And the meeting details will simply give you the join information. So if you needed to really quickly copy that, normally that's what that looks like. Y'all can see the scrambled versus that. You can quickly grab a copy and invite somebody that maybe you forgot or left out. The second part here is a part that really will depend again on the version you have. But this is where I'm going to bore you guys and jump over a little bit to a PowerPoint. But Microsoft Teams will allow you to view your meeting, and each person's view is independent, your independent choice. Just like in Zoom, you know, you can have the one, you can have a list, you can have everybody. This is the same thing. A gallery will show you up to 9 videos. And if someone does not have their video camera on, and let me be clear, I mean not on. If they have their video camera on, but just covered, they're still going to show as a black box. But if they do not have their video on, they will never show in your gallery. They'll show down around the bottom. And again, I'll show you a picture of what that looks like because I can't do that. I don't have anybody here with me. You have the option for large gallery. Large gallery will show up to 49 videos. It works the same way. It will automatically eliminate anyone from the gallery that does not have their video on, but you'll see up to 49 on a single screen, which is kind of nice. The next one is a together mode. I'll show that to you. That's the only thing I can say is I'll show that to you. It's funny and it's fun, and I certainly understand where teachers would be very interested in this mode. For us at the office so far, it's just been fun to play with. And then you have something called focus mode. So you know that when we were in the Zoom meeting and we were seeing the PowerPoint, you can also have, you know, video, a strip of videos on the right, or you may have, you know, the toolbar and stuff. In Teams, you have all that, you're seeing all that, but you can click focus. And then you can pick what you want to focus on, meaning it will take over your entire screen. You won't see this toolbar. You won't see the strip of videos, whether they be at the side or the bottom. It will literally, whatever you pick, make it your full screen. And you simply hit escape to go back to the normal view, kind of like making a PowerPoint full screen. And then you hit escape to go back. So it gives you the ability to pull off all the distractions. I'm one of these people that tends to do that. If you find yourself in a meeting that you can't hear, you can always click call me. So before we went in, we had the option to use our cellular device as our audio. Here, I'm already in, I'm invested, but I can't. So I can click call me. And when that happens, Teams will automatically call you, provided you are logged in, and you can connect via a cell phone. Again, here's those background effects. I'll click on that for mine. It's just like Zoom. There's a blur. There's a bunch that have been provided for you. And you can see here, we at KDE have started building some. You can click preview before everybody sees it and then apply. So you're familiar with that if you're familiar with Zoom. Excuse me. The call me and this next one, which I think is a very important one, which is turn on live captions, are two that, depending on how your district is set up, you might not see. The turn on live captions is simply a checkbox in the administrative end of your Teams. So your district tech can take care of that for you, and they can turn that on. And for some reason, it doesn't default to on, so we've run across a lot of districts that don't have it turned on, and it's simply just by the fact that they often use Google Meets instead. So certainly reach out if turning on live captions is something you want. That is an individual setting, so I can turn my live captions on, and I can do that. And you will see that it will start producing live captions for me, but it will not produce those for everyone else. They will turn them on individually, and then I can turn them off. You can record just as you can in Zoom. However, much like Zoom, only one person can record a meeting. So I'm sure Eve, you will be probably the keeper of the recording. The dial pad is if I want to call somebody into the meeting. As attendees, you all probably won't. As users, this might be something you're interested in. You can click that dial pad. It will truly come up with a phone dial pad. I could type in my personal cell phone number here. Oh, well, I can't if I can't type. I could call myself and it would literally drop me into the meeting. Well, you want to warn somebody when you're going to do that, you're going to do that. And I won't do that because then I'll have 3 devices and it could get crazy. I do want to point out this one down here for you guys because it might be of interest to you. So with Zoom, with Google Meets, and with Teams, and many of the others that are out there, sometimes you can run into a bandwidth issue. Rain will cause it for some folks, being far enough out in the country, the type of internet provider you have. And you may find that your videos are very choppy or the sound becomes choppy. And some of that is because you are both trying to send out video and audio, and you are trying to consume now potentially 49 videos. And one of the things that you can do to help with that is this right here, turn off incoming video. And in Teams, this is something a lot of times we'll recommend. If you don't need to see everyone, now I know sometimes you do, and you don't have this luxury, you can choose to turn off the incoming video. And that only turns off what's coming into you. Your video would still be visible to the recording, your video would still be visible to others who are consuming video. So that is there and able to be done. Now, if you all will bear with me, I'm going to do a little hop, skip, and a jump, and I'm going to go over here and show you all what these views look like. Here is what the large gallery looks like. Yeah, you all are participating in a meeting right now that looks a lot like this. So that is the large gallery view. And then that together mode that I told you I would have to show you because there was no way to describe it is this. It puts you each in a cute little chair like you're sitting in a theater. Probably got very few people on here that would remember the Muppets theater days, but it kind of reminds you of that a bit. You can see for a teacher with students, this is awesome. Not because it puts them in chairs, but because it automatically takes out anything in the background. It doesn't matter if the young man on the second row has a background on or not. He's going to go to this. It's going to automatically block out everything behind him. And of course, it's fun to see if you can high five your neighbor as well. So that's what those views look like. Now I'm going to hop out of full screen here, and I'm going to scroll down just a little bit, and I'm going to show you what it would look like potentially if you were to join from your browser. So back to the screen that I showed you earlier when I was going there. Now you'll notice when I went, I got this screen. I do want you to know that depending on what version of operating system you're running, whether you're on a Mac or a PC, and what version of a browser or what browser you're running, you may see this picture, you might see what I saw, same buttons. So all good in that department. But if you come in on a browser, what you will see is basically the meeting screen like this. And you will see none of the Teams app controls. And the Teams app controls right here is what I'm talking about. They're these apps. And you all will notice that my team is popped out. And that's one of the new features that you may or may not have. But normally your meeting sits in an environment like this. Your meeting in a browser will look like this. It will obviously be a very white screen. I use a dark thing, but you will still have the toolbar. Depending on how you join, for example, if you log in with your district account, you're going to be posed with a question at some point along the way. And it's going to say to you, switch to KDE staff guest, because each of you that are in districts have a mirrored account in our environment. We call it a tenant technically, but it's really just our organization. If you switch to that, you will have a little bit different abilities than you do if you say no to that. So if you say no to that, you'll be acting under your district's administrative role. So again, you may not see a few of these. The call me you might not see depending on your licensing. If you come in as a KDE staff guest, which is coming in as us, you would see those because you'd be acting under our administration. So all of this will be available to you. It'll just depend really on the version and how you log in. So I don't want you to come in and go, man, she told me I was going to be able to raise my hand and I can't raise my hand, because there is a possibility that depending on how you log in, that feature wouldn't be there. If that happens, let Eve know. We'll work with you to get it fixed, or work with you to let you know what needs to change so that you would. And we do that. We do that quite a bit. So that's
Beth,
kind of
these are university participants for the most part.
even better.
And most universities do not have these accounts. So as I was setting up my UPPI team, which is what I call these folks, I noticed that they're going to have to come in as guests.
Well, yes, and Eve, I can also help you with that, because
Okay.
you're correct, and I apologize. I guess I assumed a lot of folks were probably going to be district folks, but for our university folks, we can do the same thing, Eve, and you can do that actually on your end. We will fix it to where they will have a mirror account.
Good deal.
And the way we do that is within Teams. For anybody that's a Teams user and you're curious how you do that. From within Teams, all you have to do is go into an actual team, and this is a team that I work in, and invite somebody to join a team. So I could come down here and select Manage Channel, and I could come in and I could, change permissions. And once I have added a member or invited somebody to join, Eve, what that'll do is it will give every one of them that guest account on our domain. Now, you won't need it. You won't need it, but it does change a little bit. The abilities you have. And what I would recommend is you guys have the first meeting, or Eve, I'm willing, if the group is interested, I'm willing to set up a block, say, like on Friday or one day next week, and block off a couple hours and just open up a Teams meeting, and you can practice joining it, which is kind of fun at your leisure. We can do that for everybody. And then everybody will see that experience, and they can go ahead and say, hey, I don't have this, or I do have this. Here's what I can promise you. No matter how you join, you will have the important things. You will be able to be seen, be heard, see, hear, and chat.
Okay. That's great. I think some of you may have already received a Teams invite from me, because I set up a UPPI team on my account maybe a week and a half ago. So some of you may have already received that. So that's what I was talking about. But Beth, thank you. They just needed that orientation, because they're not as familiar with Teams as we've been using Zoom and other kinds of things. So that is something that the department is moving to. So as you attend or get invites from department meetings now, you're going to see a lot of them coming in on Teams. So Beth, were you finished, or is there something else?
Well, I was just going to see, and if anybody had any questions, or if there's something you all, you're a group, you meet regularly, you know what you need that you didn't see there that you feel like would be important, and I can either show you how you can do it, tell you how you can work around it, or admit that it's not there, because not everything is. That's just the facts.
Beth, you offered when we were chatting last week to be available for our first Teams meeting. So if that's still an offer on the table, I'm going to invite you to our first Teams meeting in case any of us have questions or problems, so that we can navigate that system and all feel more comfortable with it.
Absolutely. And another thing that I will do, Eve, if you want to share it with the group beforehand, is we have a very simple, it's about a 5-screen PowerPoint that we will send out that walks you through those steps that I just walked you to, because I know I went through that fairly quickly. And when reality hits, it's going to be like, I think she showed me the screen, but I don't remember. And it will walk you through step by step actually getting in, and that will a lot of times help ease some of that as well. But yes, I'm more than happy to join, more than happy to help out with any issues on the fly. And again, Eve, I'm more than happy to set up a pre-meeting meeting. Like I said, a lot of times we'll set one up and leave it open for anywhere from 2 to 4 hours and let people just join at their convenience and test. We do that a lot of times with new boards. Our Board of Education was one we did that with a few times.
Okay, if you'll go ahead and send me that PowerPoint, I'll send it out to folks, and we'll use our Microsoft. And it could be that some of them choose to have a private session on Teams. So we'll keep all of our options open.
All
on that.
options open. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Beth, and take care and get well.
All right. Well, thank you all. You all have a great day.
Thanks.
Uh-huh.
We're at the back end of our meeting, and we're right at almost our time. We did record today's meeting, so Jenny's going to help me save it so that we can put it into hopefully a YouTube. I would like to give Rocky just a second to update everyone on the leadership book.
Okay, thanks, Eve. We were blessed back in late May, early June to be offered a contract from Roman and Littlefield, a publisher I've worked with for several years. And Eve and Stephanie and I have edited work that was submitted by several folks from higher education and KDE that has resulted in a practitioner's book on the PECL standards. And it will be used, I'm sure, quite a bit here in Kentucky by our higher ed programs and maybe even out in P12. And it also will be obviously advertised by Roman and Littlefield for other agencies in other states to use. So it just came together really quickly. Eve gave an invite to folks in this group if they wanted to participate, and we probably have 12 or 15 folks who jumped in and did their part, and it didn't take very long that way. But a special thank you to Stephanie and Eve. Eve has been the person who's been facilitating this, and we have word back from our editor that he had us to make some minor changes so it was not just written for folks in Kentucky, but could go to a larger audience. But so far it's in the publisher's hands, and I would imagine in 6 months it'll be out. And
I just wanted to share with this group that when the book comes out, we will ensure that every EPP and co-op has a copy of it. We will buy one copy from our funds here, but the people who were authors will also get an opportunity to purchase them. And we can purchase them as with some discounts. So we will make sure that people have copies to use. I think it was a pat on the back that the editors came back and the publisher came back and said, we don't want this just to be Kentucky's PECL book. We want it to be used everywhere for PECL, because I think that they recognized the value of it when they read it. So I think taking out specific Kentucky references so any state would use it for PECL is probably just a compliment more than anything, Rocky. So taking it that way. I do want to go ahead and schedule regular meetings. If you would put in chat any specific day of the week to avoid or time to avoid, I will go ahead and schedule some of our next meetings. In our next meeting, we know we're going to be talking about, we're going to be working with P3 about having conversations about principal needs in our candidate preparation programs and mentorship and coaching. We also are going to be talking about the CEO programs and updates. And we will have Beth on standby for working with us as we move to teams. I think we are going to, I think we're just going to learn a lot of virtual platforms this year so that all of us can become as acquainted with things as we can. So if you'll take an opportunity in chat to tell me if there's a day to avoid, then typically we try to stick with, you know, Tuesday, Wednesdays, or Thursdays, or something like that. We try, you know, we did Fridays last year and found out that Fridays are not good days for folks. So we will work from your schedules on this. And at this point, please just let us know if you have any overriding questions. If you have an agenda item, if you would just email me personally and say, I'd like to know more about this, or I heard this, our dean discussing this, or I heard so-and-so discussing this, and I'm not sure what it means, please, we try to build our agenda based on things that you want. But our focus this year is going to be networking. How can we keep working with each other to sustain the communication, the collaboration, and the work that's going on? Any questions right now? It looks like we're not going to be doing Wednesdays this year. So, and it said no Mondays or Fridays. So I guess we're down to Tuesdays and Thursdays. And unless you have objections, I will try to put them at this time of day because people in the western part of the state, you don't want to get them out of the bed too early. So we will try to do like the 11 to 1 hour unless there's major conflict that way. I find that there's less disruption even in our own office with 11 to 1. I can get more people participating because that's typically a lunch hour time frame. So other than that, I do want to thank each of you for participating today. We're going to make them more interactive after today. We just had things to catch up on. I do look forward to working with you. And we have several projects going on. I hope next week everyone invites someone from the principal programs, but also someone from the DPP, the DOS, the superintendent, and the instructional supervisor programs to be participating in the SLLA practice testing, because ETS is actually going to give us codes, and we're each going to have a test where we can go in and look at the types of information and the way in which the candidates are going to need to respond. So this will help us in looking at our programs to see, are we giving them activities and experiences and information so that this is not going to be something, they'll be prepared just coming out of our classes as opposed to having to study for it. So this is a great opportunity. I already have found that there are a couple of people who had conflicts, but we've been able to find replacements for them. So please just let me know, because we can have as many codes as people possible. So we'll keep working on that. If you have anything you want, just raise your hand right now or just open mic for a second.
Just a word of news, not related to this, but many of you know Dr. Lyons. And he has announced his retirement. He's going to do some different things. So I know he's been involved in these meetings for quite a while, and he will be leaving at the end of the month.
Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. Actually, Robert said something to me 2 weeks ago. He and I were teasing each other about who was going to retire first, and I gave him my timeline. And by dang, if he didn't beat me. So I guess we will miss him. I'm hoping he will come back periodically and share things with us. But we're going to have changes in our programs this year. We've got some new deans, some new department chairs. We have different faculty. So we want opportunities to invite new people in and to share those unique things that you're doing in your, well, actually at the university, it's just like our school districts are doing. Everybody's inventing different ways of doing things this year. I do want to share with you, and I don't know if it'd be the next meeting or the next meeting, I have found some possible means of having some videotapes that you could use with candidates to help them do some problem solving in different areas, finance and other ways. And I'm going to try to see if there's a way in which I can do that this year out of the UPPI budget. I've been told that yes, it would be allowable. I just don't know what the cost is going to be yet. But to see if that's a meaningful way in which you can give some candidates experiences this year. So we will be discussing that more. I'm hoping to have more information at our next meeting about that, but it would be actual real life videos, real principals who are being, walking through real life problem solving situations that they would face as a principal or assistant principal or other positions. I think it's mostly principal administrators right now. Okay. I'm going to close out now. Feel free to stay on if you have additional questions or anything. Like I say, we did record this, so as soon as Jenny can help me get it, hopefully we don't lose any of it. We didn't get it started at, at the very, very beginning of Rob's, but we captured most of everything else, so that you can listen back to some of the information today. We will try to attempt to do that so that you can also share it with your peers there at the university, because we realize that not everyone can participate all of the time. Thanks to all of you. You're the reason I haven't retired yet, or formally retired again. I think I've retired twice.